we're continuing our coverage of Pope Francis's visit to the United States. Here he is at St. Matthew's Cathedral in Washington, D.C., delivering a prayer service for the Catholic bishops that have gathered here. And joining me now is my colleague, Elaine Kiana. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you.
We also still have with us Candida Moss, who was our CBS News papal contributor. How are you?
I am very well. How are you?
So we're listening to this speech, this prayer service that the Pope is delivering to these Catholics. And at the point where we are right now in the speech, what has struck you the most?
Well, the first thing that really struck me is the tone. It's very soft and gentle. He talks about, he's not there to lecture them. He's there to sort of gently give them some suggestions. And he started off by thanking them for their work on immigration and thanking them for their charitable work, which indicates to us that what he appreciates about the Church in America is those things, charity and the work that the Catholic Church has done to ensure better rights and services for immigrants. He has also referred somewhat obliquely to the pedophilia crisis, and I found that really interesting. I think a lot of people were wondering, would this come up? It was very subtle language, like the rest of the speech, and maybe I should read what he said. He said to the bishops, he said he realized how much pain the recent years had weighed upon them, and he said that he supported their generous commitment to bring healing to victims and to work to ensure that such crimes will never be repeated. And certainly, he acknowledges the importance of this scandal in the life of the American Church and is encouraging them to continue to work to make sure that these crimes are not repeated, but we do have to ask if this will be enough, especially for victims.
Yeah, because, this is, in fact, an issue that a recent Pew survey found something like 18% of American Catholics feel that when it comes to what the Church needs to change, it is its handling and it's the way it's proceeded on this particular issue. At the same time, he's gotten high marks for what he has done on that topic. I heard you mention that before about convening a group to really look at that issue and tackle that issue. What else has struck you so far as we've listened to the Holy Father speak here? This is an extraordinary moment there at St. Matthew's Cathedral.
Yeah, well, I'm interested again in his appeal to American history. He actually directly refers to the American Revolution, and I think that it's really telling that he's willing to engage American history and American rhetoric. Appeals to the Founding Fathers really work here.
Yeah.
Appeals to Martin Luther King really work here. And the fact that he's willing to go outside his comfort zone, outside the box, and use our history to address us is just another sign that he's willing to meet people where they are.
Yeah, the other thing that struck me, especially as we've been talking about the Pope's very pointed remarks about immigration, is certainly when he was on the White House lawn earlier this morning. And at one point in the speech, he quotes Mark chapter 3, verse 31 to 34, and he says, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" In which one can calmly reply, "Lord, here is your mother, here are your brothers. I hand them over to you. They are the ones whom you entrusted to me." And why I think that passage is interesting when it comes to talking about immigration and some of the things that the Pope is passionate about is the Gospel of Mark is one of the unique Gospels. It's considered one of the earlier Gospels. And in that particular Gospel, Jesus is a man of action. He is a worker of miracles. He is conducting many sermons. He is healing the sick and healing others. And I found that really interesting because he's basically saying to these Catholic bishops, go out and be this way, even though it will be difficult, even though it has been difficult in this country.
That's right, and the precise context of that passage in Mark is that people come to him and say to Jesus, your mother and siblings are here, and he says, well, who is my mother? Who are my siblings? It's actually all of you, the members of my congregation. So what does that mean to bishops who certainly aren't married, although they do have siblings and parents? Well, it suggests that it shouldn't just be about an insider group. It's not just about Catholics. It's about everyone, and they should be ministering to everyone.
Tell us a little bit more about his audience there. These bishops, we have seen them in recent years very active, U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, very active on the issue of immigration. Before that, though, what was the sort of extent? Because this is a political group as well as being a religious group, we should point out. So his words here, he is helping to shape the tone and the approach, or at least he's trying to.
That's right. A lot of the bishops and cardinals that we're seeing here at St. Matthew's were actually appointed by John Paul II or Benedict XVI. And they were appointed, many of them, as kind of culture warriors. They were there to uphold Catholic doctrines in America, a country with a much more liberal perspective on these issues. So these aren't naturally people that Francis can go to mirror his tone. And I think that's really interesting. When he talked initially about how he hoped that wherever in America Jesus' name is spoken, that his voice would also be heard, he's perhaps referring to the fact that bishops may not have been communicating his message to the person in the pew. Studies have shown that a lot of American Catholics actually don't know what he says about the environment. And so perhaps what he's saying is, you need to get my message through.
Yeah, you know, it's also fascinating, too, as you point this out, the part of this prayer service to these bishops has been because from the very beginning of his papacy, the Pope came right out 6 months into the papacy and said, Catholics have been too stuck on religious dogma. We need to become more inclusive. He said that the church had prioritized moral doctrine over actually the inclusion of those perhaps who have even lapsed and fallen by the wayside.
Yes, that's exactly right. He cares about inclusion, and he cares about unity and embracing people and bringing them into the church. It's interesting that he took such a soft tone. He has had some quite harsh critics in the United States, and he's responding with love and kindness. And the example he's leading with is, I'm not going to rise to the bait here. I have criticized bishops very strongly, as I did in my Christmas address last year, but here I'm just going to speak to you in love. I'm going to suspend judgment of you, which is what I want you to do when it comes to your parishioners.
In fact, Archbishop Raymond Burke of Wisconsin, certainly an example of the conservative wing of the church, not at all happy with Pope Francis and the direction that he's taken.
Exactly right.
Let's get back to the Pope's comments. Let's just check with our control room. Sharon, that is what we're doing, right? We're going to go ahead and listen in to the Pope. This is quite a long prayer service. So if those of you who are watching and are familiar with going to church, this is we know that the Pontiff will be delivering quite a long sermon here, or a long prayer service to these bishops. We're going to go ahead and dip back into it, and we'll come out and talk more about what he has to say. Let's listen.